The prairie looked endless. In every direction, the land stretched flat and golden, rippling under a dry summer wind. The year was 1860, and the Nelson family's wagon creaked across the high plains, just one of thousands chasing a promise west. But promises out here came at a cost, and the Nelsons were about to pay it. They were a large party: John and Mary Nelson, their 6 children, and a few hired hands driving a small herd of cattle. They'd left Iowa in the spring, bound for Oregon's fertile valleys, dreaming of land and new beginnings. Their wagon was heavy with flour, tools, seeds, quilts, and a worn Bible that Mary read aloud by firelight each night. For weeks they moved in rhythm with the trail. The children chased lizards and butterflies. John rode ahead, watching for signs of trouble. Mary kept careful notes in her journal, noting the days they crossed rivers, the names of other families they met. They were not foolish. They'd heard the stories: wagon trains gone missing, livestock found slaughtered, graves with no names. But they had faith in the road, in the promise of the West. They believed, like so many others, that their journey was guided, if not by providence, then by sheer grit. But as they reached the edge of the Snake River Plain, the signs turned. They'd fallen behind the larger wagon train, first by a day, then by more. One of their oxen had gone lame. Then a wheel cracked while crossing a rocky slope. When they tried to catch up, the dust of the main train was already gone. They were alone now, just one wagon on a trail that no longer felt marked. The prairie changed, too. Trees vanished. Shade became a memory. Water was harder to find. The wind never stopped. Each night, John placed his rifle beside his bedding. He whispered to Mary that they were safe, but he rarely slept. The children were quieter now. They watched the tall grass. They knew they were being followed, though no one said it out loud. On the morning of July 24th, the sun rose blood orange. John climbed onto the buckboard and scanned the horizon. Mary packed what remained of their breakfast: hardtack and dried apples. The older boys rounded up the cattle. One of them pointed toward a distant ridge where a shimmer of movement flickered and vanished. No one spoke. Then came the screams. Figures on horseback burst from the tall brush, fast, shouting, firing. Arrows whistled through the air, rifles cracked. One of the hired hands fell immediately. John grabbed his gun and fired back, shielding the children behind the wagon. Mary was pulled down trying to gather the youngest, 3-year-old Benjamin, who had run toward the cattle. The attack lasted minutes. When the dust settled, the wagon was overturned. One of the boys, 15-year-old Samuel, lay twisted beneath the yoke. Mary's dress was soaked in blood. John had vanished into the tall grass, dragging a wounded leg, his rifle broken at the stock. And the children, 3 of them, were gone. No one knew if they'd been taken, or if they'd run, or if they lay somewhere just out of sight. But they were missing, and the trail was silent again. 2 days later, a search party from Fort Boise found the wreckage. The camp was eerily quiet. Scattered pots, a torn Bible, shreds of clothing clinging to sagebrush. No bodies at first, until they found them buried in shallow graves along a nearby creek bed. John had tried to write something in the dirt before he bled out, but the wind had long since erased it. Of the 3 missing children, there was no trace, but whispers would follow. 1 year later, a trapper swore he saw a white girl with a tattooed chin traveling with a northern Shoshone group. Another settler claimed to have traded goods with a boy who spoke no English but wore a silver locket engraved with the letter N. None of it was ever confirmed. The Nelson family disappeared into the land. They became another name spoken around frontier campfires. A warning, a prayer. A reminder that for every family who made it to Oregon, there were others whose journey ended in silence. Their graves unmarked. Their stories pieced together only by those who came too late. Today, the prairie is quiet again. The same wind moves through the grass. Wagon ruts still scar the ground like ghosts of ambition. There's no marker for the Nelsons, no town bearing their name. But if you listen closely, you can almost hear the creak of their wagon and the final echo of a family that never made it west. Thank you for listening to Deserted Trails. Subscribe for more forgotten stories from the old frontier.